Somewhere in southern Africa, where the Namib Desert melts into the sky on a horizon scorched by the sun, there lies a land that seems out of time. Namibia is not a country that reveals itself easily. You have to look at it attentively, traverse it patiently, listen to its silences, because here what you see is not always what matters, and what is left unsaid is what fascinates most. This country of vast reddish dunes and villages, scattered like whispers in the wind, hides one of the continent's most provocative cultural secrets, an ancestral tradition that, to foreign eyes, may seem unthinkable. In certain tribes of the north, such as the Himba, the act of sharing a woman with visitors is still practiced, not as an object, not as currency, but as a sacred gesture of hospitality, of connection, of respect for the other, a ritual as ancient as the dust that covers its paths. But before arriving there, one must understand what Namibia is. A young country, independent only since 1990, that carries the weight of centuries of German and South African colonialism, the violence of apartheid, and the stubborn resistance of its indigenous peoples. Among them are the Himba, one of the most fascinating ethnic groups in the world. The Himba inhabit chiefly the Kunene region in the north of the country, near the Angolan border. They are semi-nomadic herders who have lived for generations under a way of life as rigid as it is profoundly spiritual. Their appearance is unmistakable. The women, covered each day with a mixture of butterfat, red ochre, and aromatic herbs they apply to their skin, wear hair molded with clay and grease, shell necklaces, and bodies that shine under the sun like living sculptures. That blend of reddish hues, elegant movements, and serene gazes creates a hypnotic effect. They do not walk, they flow, they do not speak, they sing with their eyes. And among them, the visitor is not a stranger. He is a witness, a guest to be treated with the highest form of honor, feminine hospitality. Yes, just as it sounds. In this culture, when a foreign man arrives at a Himba hut, he does not receive only food or a place to sleep. In some cases, though increasingly rare under the influence of the outside world, the family head may offer his wife or one of his daughters as a gesture of respect. It is not a free sexual exchange. To them, it is a spiritual practice, an act of human connection, a way of saying, I accept you in my world. I give you what I hold dearest. This custom, known as Okujapisa Omukazendu, is based on values that clash with Western codes, but within Himba logic possess profound coherence. The woman is not forced. She has a voice, even if her social role is defined by tradition, and the act does not always involve physical intimacy. Sometimes it is only companionship, conversation, warmth through the night. But when something more occurs, there is no shame, no guilt. There is respect and an understanding of the body as a space of encounter, not of possession. What is most surprising is how this coexists with a deep spirituality. The Himba believe in the ancestral fire, a sacred flame that must never be extinguished, for it is the bridge to the ancestors. Each family has its okuruwo, a kind of fire altar that burns continuously and where rituals are performed to ask for guidance, protection, or forgiveness. The fire observes everything, and the fire does not judge. Meanwhile, beyond the Himba world, Namibia pulses with other contrasts. Windhoek, its capital, is a city that feels European, with clean avenues, colonial German architecture, and a tranquil rhythm. But it takes only a couple of kilometers to feel how the land changes. Villages without streets appear, houses made of corrugated iron and sand, women carrying children on their backs and water jars on their heads. Here, beauty does not lie in order, but in reality, in how people endure, in how women laugh, even when there is little to celebrate. And the role of women in Namibia is complex. In rural areas, they remain the heart of community life. They raise children, cook, heal, negotiate in markets, teach offspring, and sustain the household. Some live under strict customs like the Himba or the Herero, another tribe with Victorian dress and a deeply conservative sense of duty. Others have broken those chains. They have become activists, entrepreneurs, migrants seeking a better life in southern cities or in Europe. Yet even amid modernity, one constant remains: the body as language. Namibian women express themselves through gestures, adornments, and glances that speak louder than any words. It is not uncommon to see at rural fairs young women in tight dresses and impossible hairstyles, dancing with vitality so infectious it becomes contagious. Music is part of everything: weddings, funerals, harvests, reunions. And dancing is not entertainment, It is a trance, a language of seduction, of challenge, of self-affirmation. For the curious tourist, one who won't settle for five-star hotels or organized safaris, Namibia offers a spectacle of authenticity. But one must know how to look, because here nothing is obvious. What seems poverty can be dignity. What seems freedom can be tradition, and what seems provocation can be an invitation to unlearn. In certain villages, tourists are welcomed with dances that mimic courting rituals, women smiling as they sway their hips to the beat of drums. Some feel uncomfortable, others fascinated. What they do not know is that in many cases, these dances are not for them. They are for the spirits, for the ancestors, to renew the bond with the land. And if the visitor is a witness, he is welcome, but he is not the center. Still, there are those who have crossed the line. Foreign men who have fallen in love with Himba or Herero women and tried to take them to Europe. Some have succeeded, others have failed at the clash of worlds. Because a woman raised among herds and sacred fires does not always fit into a grey city where no one meets your gaze. Love exists, yes, but it requires time, translation, patience. Namibia is a country that does not give itself up all at once. It demands respect, it demands humility. Because behind every custom that seems strange lies centuries of wisdom, and behind every woman who dances at sunset with her body covered in ochre lies a story that needs no words to be understood. And as the sun sets over the desert and dyes the Namib's dunes red, the communities gather in silence. The flames of the ancestral fire burn as they have for generations. And somewhere, a woman prepares the home to receive the visitor, not out of submission, not out of fear, but because this is how one honors another. Because in this land of mystery and dust, sharing is a way of loving. Namibia cannot be grasped in a single glance. One must enter and let oneself be enveloped. Every corner of the country is a different door to a universe of symbols, practices, and social codes that, though they may seem simple at first glance, are steeped in millennia of complexity. And at the center of that web of meanings, the figure of the woman stands out once more, not as a mere protagonist of the exotic beauty that so many tourists seek, but as the backbone of a system that balances desire with duty, sensuality with structure, tradition with instinct. Far from the tribal north, where the Himba community maintains its ancestral rites, Namibia also breathes a modern life, especially in cities like Swakopmund, Walvis Bay, and the capital Windhoek. Here, women no longer smear their skin with ochre. Instead, they walk on clean sidewalks wearing fitted skirts, bright blouses, and meticulously decorated acrylic nails. Yet beneath that urban veneer, the same codes of seduction and relations with foreigners persist. Because desire is not something that vanishes with civilization. It transforms, adapts, and infiltrates new forms. Windhoek, with its mix of German architecture and African aesthetics, is a city where desire floats in cafes, in street markets, on Friday nights when Kwaito music vibrates in clubs until dawn. In these spaces, bodies dance with the same intensity with which ancestors invoked rain. Physical contact is natural, inevitable. There is no shyness, only fire. Tourists, captivated, often see in Namibian women a fierce beauty, a blend of strength and sweetness, independence and tradition. But few understand what lies behind that gaze that seduces without promising. What happens is that many of these women do not dance just for pleasure. They dance to survive, to stand out, to catch the eye of someone who might offer more than a night of music. Many young women see in the tourist not only a potential lover, but an opportunity. And that has created a very particular informal economy of desire, where, without speaking of prostitution in the strict sense, transactional relationships masquerade as romance. The tourist believes he is conquering. The woman knows she is negotiating. These dynamics are most evident in coastal areas like Walvis Bay, where tour boats arrive with hundreds of European or Asian visitors. In the seaside bars, the waitresses smile with a spark in their eyes that blends courtesy and strategy. They know when to look, when to laugh, when gently to touch a customer's arm. It is not manipulation, it is instinct, it is survival. And many times it is also genuine desire. Because in Namibia, as in few places in the world, desire and interest are indistinguishable. They coexist in an ancient dance, but not everything reduces to fleeting encounters. There are also stories that defy time. like that of Tandi, a woman of 32 years who met a Frenchman in a small lodge near the Kalahari Desert. He was traveling alone, seeking disconnection. She worked as a receptionist, spoke little English and almost no French, but one look was enough to ignite something. After 2 weeks, they were already sleeping together. After 3 weeks, he proposed helping her with a passport, and 1 month later, they were making plans to marry. Today, they live in Lyon, have 2 children, and she confesses she still misses the smell of wet earth after the rains in her native village. They are not isolated cases. There are dozens, perhaps hundreds of Namibian women who have left their country for love, for opportunity, or for a mixture of both. Some have found freedom, others new confinements, but all carry with them the memory of their land, the land that shaped them with long silences, scorching days and nights so cold that the body needs another to endure. And indeed, the climate in Namibia also shapes intimate life. In the Namib Desert, where it does not rain for years, the heat forces bodies to be exposed. Light clothing, skin in the sun, inevitable contact. In the mountainous eastern regions, the nights are so frigid that sleeping alone is almost a punishment. Thus, certain shared rituals are born. The fire at the center of the home, communal blankets, intimate spaces that do not always respond to Western marital logic. Here, sharing is law, and not only food or water, sometimes also affection, human warmth, solace. That idea of sharing goes beyond eroticism. It is a central value. In many communities, a woman does not belong exclusively to her husband. Rigid monogamy is a recent imposition, brought by missionaries and colonial models. In practice, male polygamy still exists in some regions, but there are also cases of women who maintain relationships with more than one man, always under tacit agreements the community accepts if there is respect. What matters is not exclusivity but harmony, mutual protection, the support of the group. And this vision has a direct impact on how young people are educated. From childhood, boys and girls learn to read the signals of the body, to respect another's space, to understand that pleasure is not forbidden but part of life. In some rural schools, where sexual education programs are more open, students are taught not only biology but also community values. Consent, reciprocity, care. Young women grow up with a much freer relationship to their bodies than in many other cultures. They wear adornments, apply makeup, dance without shame. They know they are seen, and they choose how to be seen. That is not to say everything is harmonious. Machismo persists. Gender inequalities remain deep. And many women, especially in the poorest areas, continue to suffer abuse, exploitation, or control. But even in those difficult contexts, resilience is fierce. Namibian women are the most entrepreneurial. They are the ones raising children alone. They are the ones farming, trading, caring, and amid it all, they still find space to flirt, to laugh, to dance. In Namibia, sensuality is not hidden. It is in the body, yes, but also in the deep voice of a woman selling mangoes by the roadside, in the fixed gaze of a young woman walking alone through the desert at dusk, in the slow movement of a mother braiding her daughter's hair by the fire. Everything breathes desire, but not as urgency, as beauty, as presence, as an affirmation of being alive. And for the foreigner seeking more than a postcard, Namibia offers precisely that, the chance to feel part of something greater, of a story without a clear beginning or defined end, where love can be real or fleeting, where the body can be temple or trap, where sharing a woman is not scandal but right, where every caress can be a pact, and every silence an invitation. In Namibia, mystery is not found solely in the vast deserts or in the endless horizons where dunes shift shape at each dawn. The true secret lies in its villages, in its rituals that defy Western logic, and in the ancestral way human bonds are woven. Throughout the territory, communities exist where sensuality is not taboo, but a social, almost sacred language, where the woman, far from a passive figure, occupies the place of guardian of traditions, of desire, of fertility, and of the subtlest power. In the Zambezi region in the northeast, one of the most fertile areas, but also one of the least culturally explored by foreign visitors, the Lozi and Mafwe women have historically been the central axis of domestic power. Matrilineality, inheritance passed through the maternal line, grants them a special status that translates into security, respect, and above all, emotional freedom. In certain traditional celebrations, young women are presented as symbols of fertility, dancing half-naked in circles of fire, adorned with shell necklaces, ivory bracelets, and body paintings that evoke earth goddesses. But there is more. In Namibia, the body is not separated from the cosmos. Seduction rituals are not mere coquettish displays, they are invocations to the continuity of life. Women paint their breasts and abdomens with symbolic patterns. Circles represent the moon, the womb, protection. Straight lines symbolize the path to the desired man. There is no vulgarity in these gestures, only beauty. A powerful beauty that does not seek to please, but to manifest an ancestral identity. In the central regions, the Herero present another form of sophistication. They wear Victorian-style clothing, a legacy of the German colonial era, with voluminous dresses and hats that resemble ox horns. This attire, far from being antiquated, is a symbol of ethnic pride and structured femininity. In patriotic celebrations, they march upright, imposing, like matriarchs who have survived wars, occupations, and centuries of oppression. And although their way of seducing is different, more restrained, more symbolic, it is no less powerful. Because in Namibia, even silence can be a song. It is important to understand that in these cultures, marriage does not mean confinement. In many rural communities, especially among the Damara and the Nama, there exist traditional arrangements of secondary loves known as ovihambo. In these bonds, a married man or woman may maintain a stable relationship with another person with the consent and knowledge of their primary partner. There is no betrayal in this. There is structure, there are rules, there is trust. Far from representing licentiousness, this kind of arrangement reflects a very different vision of fidelity, one based on honesty, emotional freedom, and social flexibility. And amid these cultural complexities, a fascinating scene emerges, the improvised love market. At rural fairs, during festivals marking seasonal change or thanksgiving to the ancestors, men and women from different villages gather not only to trade goods, but also glances, promises, gestures loaded with intention. The women, dressed in their finest, whether traditional garments or modern adaptations, move among stalls of fruit, textiles, or livestock with a hypnotic confidence. They are not desperately seeking a partner, they are displaying themselves. They are reminding the world that their bodies are symbols of power, not submission. Young women especially master this art with a grace learned from childhood. They are trained by their mothers and aunts in dances, in symbolic hairstyles, in the use of natural perfumes made from herbs macerated in oil. Their hairstyles also communicate messages. The finest braids may signify availability, others that they are committed or in mourning. Here, every detail counts. Every adornment is an encrypted message, every look a bridge. Among the Topnar tribes of the coastal desert, a small community living near the Kwiseb River, human relationships are understood in balance with the environment. They believe that the human body is connected to the movements of the wind, to the rotation of the stars, and to the cycles of water. Therefore, the act of sharing a woman with a visitor is also an act of cosmic balance, offering the warmth of the body to mitigate the cold of the soul. It is not servitude, it is the restoration of harmony. And although these practices are slowly disappearing under the pressure of tourism and more conservative national policies, in many homes the whisper of those customs still survives. There are older women who tell stories of how in their youth, sharing a husband or receiving a friend of the husband was not a cause for jealousy but for pride, because it implied trust, because it proved that their home was strong, generous, open to the world, and above all, because they knew how to distinguish between body and soul, between caress and belonging. Meanwhile, the city presses forward. In Windhoek, in Swakopmund, in universities and shopping centres, a new generation of Namibian women is redefining the female role without renouncing its legacy. Young women who wear tight jeans yet still carry a symbolic braid in their hair, who manage social networks but still respect the rituals of the family fire, who flirt in English but make love in Ochi Herero. They are the bridge, the synthesis between the past that still burns and the future that is dawning. And we must not forget the influence of art. Namibia has a powerful oral tradition. In the tales that grandmothers narrate at dusk, women are often the heroines, cunning, sensual, warrior-like. In one of the oldest stories of the San people, it is told how a woman with dawn-colored skin seduced the wind god to protect her village from a deadly drought. She did not use force, she used dance, word, breath. Since then it is said the wind blows gently whenever a woman dances on the sand. In popular songs, this idea is also present. Afrobeat rhythms, kuduro, and local fusions speak not only of parties, but also of desire, conquest, and amorous nostalgia. And although they sometimes fall into stereotypes, they are also a way of celebrating the body and the bond. Many men sing of the pride of having a woman who dances like fire. Many women sing of the longing to be loved by someone who understands their rhythm. Music does not hide. It names, it provokes, it celebrates. And so, among tribal dances, markets scented with fermented fruit and cities filling with neon, Namibia remains a country where mystery does not hide. It simply waits for someone daring enough to see it with open eyes. The women are still there, steadfast, sensual, indomitable. Shared not as merchandise, but as language, as symbol. As a gesture of a culture unafraid to show what others prefer to conceal. The true face of Namibia is not only in its remote villages or in its red-skinned women who defy the sun, it is also in its silences. In the way the wind sweeps through the Namib desert and raises whirlwinds as if they were whispers from the past. In the manner in which ancient peoples have survived time, modernity, and oblivion. In Namibia, life does not impose itself. It insinuates itself, and whoever wants to discover it must be willing to stop, to feel more than to see, to listen more than to speak. This country is a land of extremes. It has one of the oldest deserts in the world and some of the continent's most resilient communities. It also boasts a coastline nicknamed the Skeleton Coast, not only for the wrecked ships along its misty beaches, but for the mystical aura that surrounds it. There, the desert dunes meet the sea without transition, as if the planet had forgotten to build a border between land and ocean. On that desolate strip, many fishing communities have learned to live with nothing. No fresh water, no electricity, no company but the waves, the wind, and the salt spray. But it is not all drought and solitude. Namibia is also the cradle of exuberant natural wealth. Etosha National Park in the country's north hosts one of the greatest concentrations of wildlife on the continent: lions, elephants, rhinoceroses, zebras, giraffes. Their safaris are not merely tourist spectacles, they are an extension of the Namibian soul. For here, animals are not ornamentation, they are brethren. Many local peoples believe that their ancestors' spirits inhabit the bodies of animals. Thus, seeing a lion at dawn or a herd of elephants crossing the dust becomes something more than a postcard. It is a message, a visit from another world. And in that other world, women continue to be the mediators. They are the ones who know medicinal plants, who can read the sky, who know when it is time to gather, to be silent, to celebrate. In San communities, for example, the ancient Bushmen of southern Africa, women play a spiritual role that transcends the domestic. They are the storytellers, the healers, the guardians of ancient chants. It is said that each San carries a song in their blood, and that melody only reveals itself during dreams. The women hear it, they translate it, they sing it as they walk across the savannah with their children tied to their backs. In Namibia, the education of desire begins at home but is completed in nature. There is no taboo around the body. Nudity in certain rural areas is not associated with explicit sexuality, but with belonging, with identity. Thus, a Himba child may see their mother combing her hair at dawn, naked, without that provoking discomfort or shame. It is simply life. It is the body being what it is, an extension of the earth. And yet, when night falls, everything changes. For while the day is filled with light and clarity, the night in Namibia belongs to mystery, to the soft singing of women around the fire, to gatherings in huts scented with burning wood and body oil. Here, sensuality is not shouted. It is whispered. It is not sought. It is found. Encounters do not always need words. A gesture, a look, a shared silence suffices. In many villages, there is no exact word for boyfriend or lover. There is the idea of a companion of time, someone who accompanies for a while, for a season, for a moon. Sometimes that companion stays, other times they depart. There is no judgment, only experience. For tourists venturing into the country with open eyes, this approach can be disarming. Some arrive seeking adventure, exotic African bodies, one-night loves, and yes, they may find them. But what they do not expect is that upon leaving, they will carry something deeper. a gaze that cannot be forgotten, a sense of having touched something sacred even if they do not know exactly what. Because in Namibia, the visitor does not just observe, they are observed. The women are not naive. They know the power of their bodies, of their land, of their customs. Some use it to protect themselves, others to negotiate. But many simply live it. For here, life does not disguise itself, it is inhabited. In the country's south, in the Karas region, where the landscapes become more arid and the sky more immense, there are villages where the goddess of fertility is still honored. On certain dates of the year, rites are celebrated in which only women participate. They paint their bodies, dance in circles, offer fruits and chant ancestral names. There are no men, there are no spectators. It is a secret rite of communion, of power. And they say that on those nights, some women receive visions of future daughters, of lovers yet to arrive, of decisions they must make. Those who have experienced the ritual do not speak of it. They only smile differently afterward. And so, without announcements, without promises, Namibia leaves its mark on those who visit it. Not for what it offers immediately, but for what it reveals slowly. Because every story of shared woman, every glance at the ancestral fire, every dance at sunset is another page in a book that has yet to be finished. Namibia does not shout its secrets, it whispers them. And whoever has the fortune or the daring to listen discovers that there are countries that are never forgotten, not for what they possess, but for what they make one feel. Namibia is one of them.